3 Acadiana natives could soon be recognized as saints by the Catholic Church.
The process will start Saturday in a ceremony at the Diocese of Lafayette. And Charlene Richard, also known as the Little Cajun Saint from Acadia Parish, where her family still lives today. Jordan Lippincott has their reaction to the news in our top story.
According to the diocese, stories of miraculous healing have been attributed to all 3 candidates, including the youngest, Charlene Richard, also known as the Little Cajun Saint.
She was a vivacious person. I called it the most extraordinary, ordinary person I've ever known.
Charlene was buried here at St. Edward Catholic Church Cemetery in Richard, her gravesite garnering international attention, with hundreds coming to pray.
When they finally admitted her and everything, he told Dr. Voorhees told Mom and Dad she had lymphocytic leukemia and that it was terminal.
Charlene died 13 days later, and although she was in intense pain during that time, her faith never wavered. Her brother John says his family is humbled by the news Charlene may be recognized by the church as a saint.
Why our family? I don't know, but I think it's not just our family, it's the whole community. It's not just us.
St. Edward Catholic Church sits in the middle of the Cajun Prairie, in the tiny settlement of Richard. People who come here say this is a place of miracles.
We already know St. Charlene Richard, and that's what's important and true.
For more than 50 years, the people of this church and some Catholics from around the world have been praying to a 12-year-old girl, Charlene Richard. Although not officially a saint, it's believed she has performed miracles.
This is one of God's miracles. God works in unknown ways. It's not for us to understand, it's for us to accept it.
Once a year, Sean McGowan and his wife, Mary Margaret, drive from their home in Houston to this church and cemetery to pray at the graveside of Charlene.
There's a peacefulness when you come here. It's real peaceful.
She's given us graces. They're not real big things, but they're meaningful, they're recognizable.
By all accounts, Charlene was a normal, playful child from a devout Catholic family who had her life cut short in 1959. Charlene's life changed drastically when she was just 12 years old, and she saw the vision of a woman standing by an oak tree.
She ran into the house and she was afraid. And she told Mama that she saw a lady all dressed in black. She couldn't make out her face.
John Dale Richard, Charlene's older brother, remembers his sister seeing the same thing the next day. And then the pain started, and Charlene's diagnosis was a death sentence.
And she was diagnosed with acute lymphatic leukemia. And from that time, she lived 13 days. She was dead.
But Richard says it is what his sister did in those final days and after her death that have made her so special.
She had so much faith. She knew she was dying, and she accepted that.
For the last 2 weeks of her life, Charlene prayed with the hospital chaplain, and each day she offered her sufferings for others. And then after her death, people began to speak of miracles they attribute to Charlene, including stories of unexplained healings.
This was a newborn. The doctor called the family because she was not expected to make it. And the grandfather came, and he had a prayer cloth and a picture of Charlene, and he put it on the child, and he started praying. And they saw the child getting well from that instant. And she said it was just a miracle that they witnessed.
The healing of the cancer of Rock Roy's daughter, when Rock Roy brought her up here and healed her. That's the biggest thing to me.
McGowan once served on a committee in the Diocese of Lafayette for the formation of sainthood for Charlene. That effort continues today.
Apparently I was in the first grade with her.
Sandra Hanley Strassner also lives in Houston, and she returns to Richard each year.
Just the simple fact that she was not so afraid to die, that she had this eternal peace.
It's said that a day doesn't go by that someone doesn't stop at this grave and pray.
To think that people that you have never seen write to you and tell you their intimate life and how they were blessed, through Charlene.
There are more stories of miracles, countless blessings, and endless prayers offered to Charlene.
Anything is possible with God. Anything is possible with God.
This 12-year-old child's eternal rest has given so many others hope and peace. With the heart of Louisiana, Dave McNamara, Fox 8 News.
I'm Noelle Heaster-Crow.
And I'm Tom Crow.
Today we're talking about Charlene Richard, who is known as the Little Cajun Saint. Richard died at just 12 years old after a brief but painful illness.
And this is a fairly short episode because, frankly, there's not a lot to tell, but what there is to tell is pretty cool and dramatic.
Right. She lived a fairly ordinary life, very much like the other children in her neighborhood. By all accounts, her life wasn't filled with extraordinary acts of piety, but it was the way she accepted her illness and suffering that made all the difference for her, and since her death, for so many others.
So many miracles through her intercession.
Dramatic ones, too.
Right. Reminiscent of St. Therese of Lisieux.
Don't jump too far ahead. Let's start by telling her story. She was born January 13th, 1947 in Richard, Louisiana. Richard is an unincorporated community in Acadia Parish, Louisiana. For those listeners unfamiliar with Louisiana, what most states call counties, Louisiana calls parishes.
Now, I must take a bit of a side road here because the name of the parish and the territory where she was born are just too interesting to just walk past. A family named Richard lives in Richard, Louisiana, and the parish is Acadia. In a podcast about Catholic history in North America, we've got to give at least a thumbnail sketch of what's going on here.
So you're going to tell a story about that, right?
I am.
And yeah, okay. I know better than to get into your way. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I promise not to take too long. So Acadia was a province of New France. It roughly included the modern-day Canadian provinces of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and part of the U.S. state of Maine. In 1713, Britain took control of Acadia at the conclusion of Queen Anne's War. But the historically Catholic and French Acadians didn't take kindly to suddenly being British subjects. Tensions lingered for decades, with many Acadians engaging in subversive behavior. Then the French and Indian War exploded in 1754. Once the British and French were in open war in North America, the British governor of Acadia had a military reason to deal severely with the Acadians, and he ordered that they be forcibly expelled. So between 1755 and 1763, about 14,000 Acadians were forced from their homes at gunpoint. The British government transported them to the American colonies, to Britain, and even back to France. Many thousands died in the upheaval. A number of Acadians, especially those who were sent back to France, decided to return to the New World and to settle in Louisiana. Louisiana had been a French colony, but it was under Spanish control by 1762. The Spanish, however, were fellow Catholics, and France and Spain had friendly relations, so this was an acceptable arrangement for the Acadians. So in 1765, thousands of Acadians moved into south-central and southwestern Louisiana. The area where they settled now includes 22 parishes and is called Acadiana. One of those counties is named Acadia.
And the descendants of these Acadian settlers are known today as Cajuns.
Right. And among those Acadian families were the Richards. Eventually, the area where they settled acquired their name. So Richard, Louisiana is in Acadia Parish.
Okay, now we're going to fast forward about 180 years. And in 1947, a daughter of these Acadian Cajuns was born and named Charlene Marie. She was the second of her parents' 10 children, and she grew up with a fairly standard Catholic Cajun upbringing.
Yeah, she went to Mass with her family at the local parish, St. Edward. She went to school, was very active with friends, was good at sports, prayed her rosary, and also got into trouble from time to time.
One of the common things said about her by those who knew her best was how ordinary she was as a child.
Yet no one remarks about her being any more holy or special than her peers for the vast majority of her life. Her brother, much later after she died, did say that while she didn't pray more than anyone else in their community, she did seem to take the faith more seriously. So there's that.
It wasn't until after her 12th birthday in 1959 that anything remarkable happened. In May of that year, she read a book about the life of St. Therese of Lisieux, presumably Therese's diary, The Story of a Soul. Charlene asked her grandmother if she could become a saint like St. Therese if she prayed like Therese did. Her grandmother assured her that she could.
Another small side story here. I gotta say, the one time I read The Story of a Soul, the parts where Therese talked with utter joy about the prospect of dying and seeing Jesus face to face just left me in tears. The utter sincerity, simplicity, and joy of her soul at the prospect of death was just overwhelming. To Therese, death was the journey to being with her beloved, and so it held no dread for her. Someone who reads her story and asks if she could be a saint in that way must have had that same inkling. And then to consider how Charlene actually died just a few months later, it's just too neat. It's almost like Charlene and Therese had a heart-to-heart, and Therese basically arranged the passage.
Okay, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay?
I can't help myself.
Yes, but we're telling a story, and we have to go step by step.
I know. I'm just building anticipation.
Mm-hmm. Can you see my eyes rolling here?
I'm sure the listeners can hear it too.
All right, let's keep going with Charlene's story.
Okay, fine. So yes, Charlene asked her grandmother that question, and then things went on as normal for a few weeks until one day Charlene came running into the house, pale and shaken, and said, "Mama, you won't believe this. I know you'll laugh at me, but it really did happen. Mama, I saw a lady, a tall lady dressed in black. She stopped me. I looked up and saw something shaped like a woman, but I couldn't see her face. I was scared. When I asked her, 'In the name of God, what do you want?' she just sailed under the oak tree and disappeared."
Whether or not her mother believed her, her brother reported being with her the next day when Charlene saw the tall woman dressed in black again.
This presumably was the Blessed Mother. Charlene left no record of the apparition saying anything to her, just appearing to her.
In July of that year, 1959, Charlene's teacher sent a note home to the Richards indicating that something seemed to be wrong with Charlene and that they should take her to see a doctor. One thing led to another, and she was taken to a specialist who handed her parents stunning news. Charlene had acute lymphatic leukemia and only had a very short time to live.
Like I said, Therese was arranging things.
Yes, but again, slow down. The rest of the pieces of the puzzle aren't quite, put together yet.
Okay, well, let's tell the rest.
Okay.
So Charlene went immediately to live at Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital in Lafayette, Louisiana. There, she was ministered to by the hospital chaplain, Father Joseph Brennan. It was Father Brennan who was tasked with telling Charlene that her illness was terminal, that she was going to die. The way that he did it was to tell her, "Charlene, soon a beautiful lady will come to take you home to heaven with her."
Charlene, perhaps channeling Therese, replied as though she already knew, and it was the most natural thing. She said, "When that lady comes, I will tell her that Father Brennan says hello."
Father Brennan, who had only been a priest for 3 months at this point, was floored. He would visit her daily, and she was always cheery in spite of the pain. She would greet Father and ask, "Who am I suffering for today?" She offered her sufferings for others to be healed or for others to become Catholic.
Charlene died on August 14th, 1959, just 13 days after being diagnosed. Almost immediately after her death, the notion that she was special began to spread.
Father Brennan told his friend, Father Floyd Calais, about Charlene. Father Calais had had some health problems of his own, and he had issues at his parish.
He began to pray, asking for assistance through Charlene Richard's intercession. In short order, his health problem cleared up, and he was transferred to another parish. Naturally, it was St. Edward, the one in Charlene's hometown. And then, when he set out to raise money to build a new church for the parish, rather than it taking 10 years or more to raise the money, it took less than 3.
Father Calais and Father Brennan both continued to spread the word about the power of Charlene's intercession, and soon it was spreading beyond their efforts. Many, many other miracles have been reported through Charlene's intercession.
One, which we heard recently from our friend Abbot Mark at St. Benedict Abbey in Harvard, Massachusetts, involved a baby born with Down syndrome. This was in the 1960s, before Downs could be identified before birth. The OB/GYN who delivered the baby immediately recognized the telltale physical signs of Downs. He delivered lots of babies and knew the signs at a glance. The nurse in the delivery room agreed with the doctor, and they informed the mother. The mother, who had known Charlene when they were children, prayed for a miracle, asking Charlene to help her baby. The baby was placed in a bassinet in the nursery, but back in a corner of the room where it couldn't, be seen through the window by all the people passing by. Later that day, when the pediatrician arrived to examine the baby for any possible heart defects, which are common for Down's babies, he inquired if he was looking at the right baby. The OB/GYN and the nurses indicated that, yes, that was the correct baby. And then he looked back at them with a puzzled expression because the baby he was examining did not exhibit any physical characteristics of Down syndrome. During that time, alone in the corner of the nursery, her Downs had miraculously cleared up.
Another miracle involved a group of sick children in the late 1980s. 5 children in a community were all diagnosed with a rare childhood cancer called neuroblastoma. One of them, Nicole Price, suddenly began asking her family to talk to Charlene. The family had no idea who she meant because they knew no Charlenes. Then one day, another of the families with a child suffering from neuroblastoma contacted the Prices and said they'd been to Charlene Richard's grave. After they explained who Charlene Richard was, Nicole's grandmother, Miriam Price, said it was like a bolt of lightning to her. They took Nicole to Charlene's grave, and when she saw the picture of Charlene on the gravestone, she said, "That's her, that's Charlene." Nicole's cancer went into remission, and while the other 4 children died shortly thereafter, Nicole battled her cancer and some subsequent tumor scares for 9 more years. Once she finally did succumb to the cancer, neither she nor her family saw it as a final defeat, but as a blessing, because through the ordeal, all of them grew stronger in their faith and grew closer to God, trusting Him more.
Miriam Price said, "I see Charlene as a saint who worked with Nicole while she was here. I think Charlene is the one that taught Nicole what she needed to know to leave behind a legacy of her own for her family. I don't ask for help for Nicole anymore. Now my prayers are in thanksgiving. The real miracle is that through Charlene, my faith has been strengthened and my belief in the power of prayer has grown stronger."
Another miracle involved a severely premature baby, Elise Graham, who was deemed beyond help and was disconnected from the various life support systems. As she was dying, her grandfather placed a Charlene Richard prayer card on her body, and suddenly the color began to return to her gray skin, and her oxygen levels shot up from 20 to 95. Elise survived.
All of the doctors and nurses present signed a statement attesting to having witnessed a miracle. The final line of the statement reads, "What a beautiful miracle. Glory be to God through Charlene."
There are many other miracles attributed to Charlene, which makes sense because, again, she was devoted to Saint Therese of Lisieux. And Saint Therese famously said that she wished to spend her time in heaven doing good upon the earth. The volume of miracles that Charlene seems to have to her credit is very Therese-like.
So it seems the people of Acadiana are onto something, calling her the little Cajun saint.
And while they've loved her from the beginning, her reputation as a miracle worker has spread far and wide. As we've recounted, miracles started close to home among people who knew her personally or came to know about her through the word of mouth. But it didn't take long for the story of her intercession to spread. Miracles have been reported all over the U.S. and even as far away as Belgium. People come to her grave and to her parish, St. Edward, to pick up a prayer card and a prayer cloth and to pray for her intercession with God. And if you go to the website for St. Edward, which we'll link to in our show notes, you can actually contact them and request that one of these be sent to you.
The process for her canonization has begun. In the 1990s, the church began to officially collect accounts of her life and evidence for reported miracles. Finally, in January 2020, Bishop Deshotel of Lafayette officially opened her cause. Perhaps, before too much more time has passed, Acadiana's own little Cajun saint will officially be Saint Charlene Richard for all the church to revere.